we're like if we're the most powerful country in the world militarily, we're the most powerful, we have the most fucking influence. I think it is absolutely disrespectful for somebody to be openly fucking with our enemies in our hemisphere. It's one thing, if this is the Middle East. Let's say this was a Middle Eastern situation, or even if this was a Chinese situation. Let's say this was like in Laos or Cambodia, in Asia, or this was somewhere in the Middle East. Of course, I would be a lot more hesitant because obviously we know the Middle East situation is more okay. If we're getting involved anywhere in the Middle East, it's more than likely because of fucking Israel. And obviously, I don't want to fight for the sake of Israel. I don't want to send them any more fucking money. I want them to be able to defend themselves and leave us the fuck alone. I'm tired of this shit. A lot of Americans are tired of this shit. And that's also why a lot of Americans who are here now, they're like, I'm anti war, because they've seen the devastation we have caused on the behalf of Israel with all these fucking wars and all these war hawks and neocons. Like, we're tired of the shit, bruh. You know what I'm saying? So everybody's just so sensitive to war. They're saying they're anti-war. We wasted so much time that it's to the point that even when it actually makes sense, for us to actually want to topple the regime in our hemisphere, everybody's so laissez-faire. They don't want to do it. They're scared of regime changes because they've seen the devastation it is caused. But obviously, we do have to take risks sometime militarily. And I think this is a place where it's fine. But everyone is obviously, and it makes sense to me why everybody's so scared about it. And they're like, I don't really want a war. I'm done with wars. And obviously, Trump himself has campaigned on no new wars. It makes sense. But I think once again, in this particular situation, it is okay. If this had been the Middle East where we had an issue going on, or this had been Asia, I'd already be uncomfortable. That's when I'd be uncomfortable because I'm like, if it's the Middle East, it's more than likely for the sake of Israel. So that's obviously a fucking issue. I'm tired of fighting for a foreign fucking nation, of course. If it was in Asia, I'm like, okay, let's see if we can do something diplomatically here. Because fighting over there in Asia, it's a completely different scenario. Like, it's gonna take a lot more time and a lot more resources because it's all the way across the world, of course. It's not really something that I'm necessarily interested in. I don't think this would really involve our national security. I mean, it's only very possible that we do actually end up in a big issue actually with China based off what's going on with Taiwan and escalations there, of course. So that can kind of drag us into the situation where I'd be like, okay, wait, we actually have to think about this and make sure it actually even makes sense for us to get involved here. I know we're doing trade with a lot of people in Asia, like Singapore, for example. So I know like we have our ties to Asia, but that's the one place where I'd be like, okay, we actually have to sit and think about it. Venezuela, to me, makes complete sense. Anything in the Middle East, probably for Jews, fuck off. Anything in Asia, we're going to have to think about it deeply. And I think we should go really hard on diplomacy. Even in Europe, same thing with what we're doing with Ukraine, same thing. I'm like, look, we should not be seeking a war with Russia at all. We should really be avoiding a war with China as well. I want to avoid any direct wars at the end of the day. But I also want to make sure in our hemisphere, nobody's getting influenced by our enemies. And I would expect China and Russia to do the exact same, by the way. Like, I would expect them that's the primary reason why even Russia invaded Ukraine. They were like, bro, Ukraine is saying, like, oh, they're looking to join NATO. They're about to join NATO. Putin's like, all right, what the fuck are we doing? Like, hold on. What the fuck are you doing? What do you mean you're going to join NATO? Like, NATO, tell these niggas that they can't join. And then the US and them niggas is like, well, I mean, they're a sovereign nation. They're allowed to do whatever they want. Because obviously, we want more of our allies to come in, so we're not going to stop them. So obviously, Putin was like, all right, fuck it. We're taking Ukraine back. I don't care. So we obviously pushed our bounds there. And we got rightfully punished for it. Now we're paying for a fucking war that we don't want to pay for. And I actually just saw a tweet the other day that we actually guaranteed them like $800 million or something like that. And obviously we guaranteed fucking Israel like $650 million too as well. So like, oh man, I'm just so tired of paying for these niggas wars, bro. Holy shit. Like, it's so gay. See, there's some wars that I'm like, what the fuck, man? Obviously, obviously I'm not really, it's not like I'm some kind of war hawk, or I'm pro-war and I want to see war all the time, or I'm necessarily anti-war, because I think saying you're anti-war is kind of gay. It's like, it doesn't really mean anything when you say it, because you eventually do have to defend yourself. Violence is real. War is real. Wars happen. People fight for influence across the world. That's just what happens. And if we're not fighting the war ourselves, then we're using proxies, which essentially the Ukraine-Russia war is anyway. It was a proxy for us because we were trying to get Ukraine to join NATO. Russia said, hey, don't let these niggas join. We're like, they're allowed to do whatever the fuck they want because obviously it benefits us. And now Russia invaded them. Now we're paying to keep the war going. You see what I'm saying? So, like, that was already a proxy war. So, if we're not the ones directly doing the war, we're using somebody as a proxy anyway. So, wars are inevitable. People are going to fight. Niggas are going to fight. So, we have to be real. That's why I don't like this whole anti-war. I'm anti-war. It's like, it becomes a moral high ground thing. Look at me. I don't want to see anybody die or anything happen. It's like, nigga, get real. Like, people fight. It's what happens. We have to know when we can fight and when we shouldn't fight. to ensure that we actually never fight. If you are always saying I'm never going to fight anybody, then a fight is going to come to you eventually. I'll tell you right now, because that's what I'm saying. If you're not trying to fight or not get involved anywhere, all of a sudden the weapons are going to fall on your border, which is basically what happened to Russia, I would argue. There were a lot more laissez-faire. They were letting things go. They freed a lot of nations right after the Soviet Union collapsed. Like they were letting a lot of things go. So for them, now they were almost paying the price, and Putin got really mad about that shit. Like, okay, we've allowed shit to go on too fucking long. We want Ukraine back. So that's pretty much how that whole entire situation escalated. But at least when we look at the situation when it comes to Venezuela, Maduro, I'm cool with the regime change. If we can topple him quickly, if we can do it efficiently without, having to potentially risk way too many American soldiers' lives, then cool. I'm with it. Obviously, we're hoping for the best scenario. I don't want any long-term thing in Venezuela. Of course, I don't think anybody does. We know how shitty that fucking is. We've seen it with Iraq. We've seen it with Afghanistan. Nobody fucks with it, especially if we leave there horribly in a bad kind of way. Nobody wants to see that. I think that's pretty much obvious. Obviously, I don't want to see that. I understand that's the risk, though. I'm not going to be a fool or sit here and be like, "Oh yeah, it's going to be easy." Just send in the planes, bomb Carcass. We'll be in and out in a day. Maduro's going to escape. Boom, we put in our little dummy in there, our little Western puppet, and then we're good to go. Like, nah, I don't think it's going to be easy. I think underestimating anyone, no matter how small they are, is stupid. Just like with the fiasco that happened with the Bay of Pigs back in '61 with JFK and Fidel Castro in Cuba, right? So I think with anyone, no matter how small the nation is or whatever, it's not going to be easy. It's definitely not going to be easy. But would I want to see Maduro toppled? Yeah, I think it's been a long time coming at this point. I would argue. So I don't mind. I don't mind seeing him gone at the end of the day. When it comes to issues in the Middle East, that's we already know, not fucking with it. I'm tired of being in the Middle East. I don't want to be in the Middle East anymore. We've seen how much time we have wasted with wars in the Middle East to get nothing for America. We're not protecting Americans with this war at fucking all. At least with the bare minimum with Maduro, it just protects our national security. They're not getting any weapons or anything from Russia that they could obviously use on the U.S. in the future for whatever kind of situation we kind of get rid of that. And he still was sending cocaine to America, even though it is the fentanyl coming from Mexico, which we should really be fucking invading. I would be loving that if Trump said, you know what, we're actually invading fucking Mexico. Fuck Claudia Sheinbaum. We're invading fucking Mexico. We're taking out these cartels that are sending fentanyl to kill Americans. I'm like, okay, cool. Like it killed like 80,000 Americans died in 2024 because of fentanyl overdoses, bro. So I'm cool with that. Come on, go take them niggas out. Like I ain't got no issue with that. Like obviously if it was that, like okay, let's say for example, even thinking about it, if it was that with Mexico over what we were doing with Venezuela and Maduro, I wouldn't even mind that. I would still want to get rid of Maduro, but if we made that move with Mexico first before we did anything with Maduro, I would get really behind that shit and actually would mean what Trump is saying is the real truth. Like he's actually worried about drug cartels and he's not just lying to the American public to make it okay for us to go to war with Venezuela because really the motivation is we're doing this for Israel. We're doing this for oil as well, but I'm just with it because it actually does benefit America though. At the end of the day, it might benefit Israel for the most part, and that's really why we're doing that's the primary motivation, but also too it benefits Americans. But I would wish for a better scenario where we actually just go invade fucking Mexico because that's where the drugs coming from, niggas. Like that's what makes sense. So yeah, I'd say that's my position on that. I think that's fair, personally.